So much in golf is unknown. Part of the allure of the game is solving the mystery.
Wow, you see the shock on his face right now.
If only for a day, if only for a moment.
It certainly was not calm.
Putting the puzzle together, unlocking the combination, figuring it out, dealing with variables.
Hit it wind, any wind up there, hit it a little bit.
A feel that's fleeting.
There's just a look of determination in his eye right now.
A course you're unfamiliar with. Its soft spots, its flow, its defenses.
It is a horrible lie.
The unknown.
Boy, he knows he's in big trouble now.
How will you handle the inevitable adversity that is the true test at a U.S. Open?
Oh no. I didn't address it.
How will you handle the pressure that builds at a U.S. Open?
What a gem, Dustin Johnson!
You need to know the answers. They're out there.
Dustin Johnson will win the U.S. Open.
At the U.S. Open.
Golf Central proudly presents live from the U.S. Open.
Nice to see Rory McIlroy. He says he is fit and healthy after more than a month away healing that recurring rib injury. His first start since the Players, where he tied for 35th. McIlroy won the U.S. Open at Congressional in 2011 with a record score of 16 under par. And then there's Ricky Fowler looking for his first major championship. Could be a real jolt for the sport, as popular as Ricky is. This is his 9th U.S. Open start. Mixed record, 4 missed cuts. Best finish was tied for second, albeit 8 back of Martin Kaymer at Pinehurst in 2014. Fowler off a missed cut in Memphis this past weekend. And then there's Jordan Spieth, 5th-ranked player of the world. He won the U.S. Open 2 years ago at another new venue, Chambers Bay. Jordan trying to become, how's this, just the 3rd in the last 100 years behind Gene Sarazen and Jack Nicklaus to have won 3 majors before their 24th birthday. And you'll remember Spieth made birdie on the par 5 18th to win in 2015. Aaron Hill's finishing with a par 5. It is a long one, potentially, how's this, 675 yards. Great to be at our national championship. And hello again and welcome. Rich Lerner alongside Brandel Chambly and Frank Nobilo. David Duval will join us tomorrow. Brandel, what are we looking at out here?
Well, this championship was created in 1895, and the goal was then, as it is now, to identify the greatest player in the world. Now, 122 years ago, that was basically between the United States and Scotland. Basically, it was just Scotland. But when the best players tee off this week, there'll be 23 countries represented. Rich, the goal is the same. It's to identify the greatest player in the world. What makes this unique is the criteria that the USGA uses to identify the greatest player in the world. It is the most intimidating, the most punishing, the most brutal setup. That's why when players win here, there's a chance that they didn't, or there's a sense that they didn't just win, they survived. When Ben Hogan won in 1951, he said, "I brought this monster to its knees." When Hale Irwin won in 1974, Dick Schaap wrote a book about it. Said it was the massacre at Winged Foot. It's no coincidence that the players that have won here the most are noted for having the greatest minds. Those players are Jack Nicklaus, Ben Hogan, Bobby Jones, and Willie Anderson. The USGA is concerned what you do and how you cover the distance from the tee to the green, but they're just as concerned with that distance between your ears, Frank.
And today, the distance between mine is not very big, I must admit. But it's one of 4 majors, we know that. And really, if you sort of categorize each of the 4 majors, we know the beauty of Augusta. And Augusta, when you win, it's a green jacket and a seat at the table. The Open Championship, it's a beautiful claret jug, so you can celebrate for 12 months. PGA Championship's the largest trophy really in major championship golf. It's the Wanamaker Trophy because you want to win another one. The US Open, it just hands out on Sundays, or actually each and every day, it hands out bruises and bumps. It is, was, and will always be and should be the toughest test in golf. And the 2 of the greatest players that have ever played this game, their words are far better than what mine will ever be. Jack Nicklaus, said, I love to walk in and hear the first 10 guys saying, God, this rough is so deep. How do you get out of it? You eliminate those players. Boy, these greens are hard. 10 more players you can eliminate. Boy, these greens are fast. 10 more you can eliminate. There's a man that won 5 US Opens. The debate whether he or Tiger Woods is the greatest. Tiger Woods, of course, the hardest to win is the US Open because of the conditions are so much more severe. It's 2 of the greatest. They fought these great championships, Jack Nicklaus, should I say, 4 US Opens. They decoded each and every venue they played because they never play consecutive venues at a US Open. Their words, I think, will certainly ring true at Erin Hills this week.
Yeah, much more on this golf course, new for so many players as we move along. Meanwhile, the defending champion Dustin Johnson not yet on the grounds here at Erin Hills. For more, let's go down to Todd Lewis. Todd?
Well, Rich, the #1 player in the world, has not made it to Erin Hills to begin his final preparations for this U.S. Open Championship, and he's not made it here for good reason. He is in the L.A. area with his fiancée, Paulina Gretzky. She is expecting the couple's second child, and the child could arrive at any moment. Now, we reached out to David Winkle, who is the manager for Dustin Johnson, and he said that he is respectively going to let Paulina and Dustin reveal the news on social media. And they have had some fun with this pregnancy on social media. Here's an example from just a few months ago.
Find out what we're having.
So the couple expecting their second boy. This is Dustin with his son Tatum practicing some golf as they await the arrival of the newest member to this family. Now, we can tell you that Dustin is expected to arrive here in Erin Hills after the birth, and we have some news. Tomorrow on the USGA's website, there is a 1:58 tee time featuring Brooks Koepka and Dustin Johnson. So we could have some news as soon as tonight in regards to the birth of the couple's child. And by the way, Dustin Johnson has seen this property, Rich. He came here just over 2 weeks ago to check out Erin Hills. Could be a storybook week for Dustin Johnson, not only the arrival of his second son, but also possibly winning the U.S. Open once again. That's a great week.
And Todd, remember, Dustin missed the Masters. He was the prohibitive favorite, so he'll make his way from California right here to Wisconsin, America the Beautiful. Here it is, just off Highway 83, and as you wind your way in, the 35-mile-an-hour speed limit, 2 lanes, you pass by idyllic spots like Heartland and Apple Lane is really lovely. Erin Hills is the 6th public course to have hosted the U.S. Open. Pebble is back, by the way, 2 years from now. Pinehurst in 2024. Bethpage Black, Torrey Pines, Chambers Bay are all municipal courses. Erin Hills privately owned, more on that in a moment. Walking only with caddies, and it's $280 per round, and this course has been closed for almost 8 months just to get it ready for this championship. So here are the numbers: 7,700 plus at a par 72. The greens are pure. There will be no repeat of what we saw at Chambers Bay with those terrible greens. Average green size 6,500, not terribly big, but not Pebble Beach small. You'll hear a lot about the fine fescue, and that rough, depending how far you stray, can be very, very difficult. So we talk about Chambers Bay and what went wrong there. Dustin Johnson, the fiasco at Oakmont last year. There is a sense that the USGA needs to stage a controversy-free U.S. Open. Curious what the players are thinking about this golf course. And with more, let's go back down to Todd.
Well, Rich, as you and Brandel at Frank were talking about, there seems to be more criticism about a U.S. Open than any other major championship. But talking to some players who've made their way here 35 miles from Milwaukee to Erin Hills, generally the views have been very positive. Of course, this is the longest U.S. Open in the history of this great championship, but still players feel like it's very playable.
It'll be a fun golf course to play. Plenty of challenging shots, tee shots, approach shots, but at the same time, if you're able to, maybe hit that right tee shot or the right approach shot, there's going to be plenty of opportunities to make birdies, but it's still going to be a tough test.
It's got a lot of character, some really good shape. The greens are perfect, good bent grass greens. Greens are funky. I mean, you got to know where to miss it, where you can't miss it. Kind of that kind of old cliche golf. You got to get the ball in the fairway. I mean, hitting it into the heather fescue, whatever you want to call it, is almost like hitting into a hazard.
It's definitely going to be one of those courses where you have to keep it in the fairway. The fairways are more generous, I think, than a normal U.S. Open track that you would expect, but you've got to keep it on the correct side of the greens. There's some places where you just can't miss it. So I think overall it's going to be an extremely difficult test of golf, but on the same token, it's going to be fair.
You got to drive it well off the tee. Plenty of just tough, lies around if you don't hit the fairway. Anyone that's going to play great this week's got to drive it well. But around the greens, it's not too bad. You can kind of putt or chip, whatever you feel most comfortable with, and I'm sure the greens will be going firm and fast. But it's a great test, and even though it's its first time, hosting the U.S. Open, I'm sure that the cream will kind of rise to the top, and you'll see a great leaderboard come this weekend.
Even though this championship will play just under 7,800 yards, many of the players are saying it really doesn't feel that big because the fairways are fairly firm, and 3 of the 4 par 5s on this golf course tip out at over 600 yards. Most of the field will not reach those par 5s in 2. It'll be driver, second shot, layup, and then a third, mostly a wedge for those players. And also the players and caddies are talking to me about the fact, even though it does not play as long, you got to take every step on this golf course, and there's a lot of movement, hills, elevation changes, and because it is so long, it is very taxing on the body. So this will be a very strong mental and physical test this week for those in the field. Rich?
All right, Todd, Frank, I'll start with you. What's great about Erin Hills?
I think it's a perfect piece of property. I was lucky before I did my tee to greens. I spoke to Ron Whitten, one of the 3 designers. I know all 3 of them are going to be up on the set later on. And he sort of just said to me, this course can work in any conditions. There could be a winning score as low as 4 under and one as high as 16 under, which would tie Rory McIlroy's record. So it just depends on the weather, but it is built for both sets of conditions.
So much thought went into this golf course. Great piece of land. There was no forced pretense to make this golf course look like or play like a links golf course, nor was there any effort to have an unnatural amount of mounding or an inordinate number of bunkers out there to sort of add salt to the wound, so to speak. I think what you see here is a real honest interpretation of what this golf course gave them, and the real thoughtful interpretation of the 3 architects, including Mike Davis. So 4 architects that collaborated to give us this property. It's unique, it's fair, and by all accounts, it's going to give us a great U.S. Open.
And over the course of the next, it's close to 2 hours, we are really going to bring you up to speed on this golf course. So we'll hear from a number of people. It is very much a build it and they will come destination in a remote location, not unlike Bandon Dunes, Erin Hills in Wisconsin.
Coming up, the 3 architects stop by to talk about their creation. So too does the USGA's top man, Mike Davis, and Brandel and Frank on why 8,000 yards may be the right distance as we continue live from the U.S. Open.